Hey everybody, this is Car Ray Rob.
I'm Ray.
I'm Rob.
We're getting ready to do our before and after reactions to the Logan movie.
Yeah, we've been talking about this movie for weeks. You know exactly how we feel about it. So we're not going to say much here. We're just going to get out the door and go check out this movie.
Let's go check it out.
See you soon.
All right, guys, we're back.
We're back.
Just saw it. I loved it.
Yeah. But this is not an X-Men movie.
No.
If you go into it thinking this is going to be an X-Men movie, it doesn't feel like an X-Men movie, don't even buy the ticket. You're wasting your time.
Hard pressed to call this a superhero movie. We'll get into that. But the trailer sold you. The trailer showed you what this movie is.
Yeah.
This movie is what the trailers presented it to be. It's like a road trip movie that's violent, that is just really big on character, and I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a family movie you do not want to take your family to see.
It's about a family.
Right.
But it's not a movie for a family.
Yep, not at all. People who haven't seen it yet, Logan, finds himself kind of intertwined with this young girl.
Yeah,
X-23.
accidentally.
Yeah, accidentally. And she's being hunted by this military force called the Reavers. And they, because of this, end up on a road trip.
Professor X, and Logan.
Yep, to find this mutant safe haven to cross into Canada.
Yeah.
Interesting story.
Not overly complex.
No.
And so, in a good way, I think.
Yeah.
And then we're able to just focus on characters.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what Hugh Jackman really wanted. He wanted to be able to explore Logan in this, and I think he totally gets the ability to do that. So was it a good swan song for him as a character?
I think so. I think, you mentioned earlier that this isn't really a superhero movie, and I agree with that completely. It really is truly an anti-hero movie. And with all the performances that Hugh Jackman's ever done of Wolverine, I really feel like this is the first time that really comes through fully. Mm-hmm. He's always, had an attitude, picks fights, angry, that type of thing. Like, those types of things.
That can be kind of flat, though. Really,
it really can. This is something completely different. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is self-destruction. This is depression. This is, all of those things that, a person, especially that seemed like he's towards the end of his life, because this is old man Logan, is going through. And it adds depths that he's never seen in 17 years. And he's disconnecting a lot. Professor X, as you would see in the film, he's really decrepit as well. He's aged quite a bit. He's facing certain mental issues that are affecting his powers, and Wolverine has pretty much become his caretaker and guardian. Yeah. So in the beginning, that's really his main focus is Professor X, and like kind of getting them to
he's pretty much just trying to see Professor X till he's dead.
He's just trying to get him
across the finish line. And he's almost doing it out of just he feels like he owes him. Like, he doesn't want to. Yeah. He comes across as totally like, this is totally a burden right now. He doesn't want to have to deal with this, but he is, because he feels like he owes him. So it's kind of like he's forced into this situation, and then that's kind of what the cool part of the movie is he gets to the point where and X-23 notices this in a couple of scenes where, like, she sees where Logan is taking care of him. Yeah. I'm thinking of the scene at the house with the family, and he's carrying him up the stairs, and you see X-23's noticing that, she's like, he's not being as much of a jerk as he's always implying.
Well, it's easy to, have these feelings, especially, for somebody who is looking at this man as a father, dealing with these illnesses, of the mind, and, he's looking at Professor X, remembering what he was like in the decades past, and realizing that man's not there anymore is really difficult.
Yeah, and I think kind of the part that also make this more complicated is, I think what Wolverine sees from Professor X there is more to Professor X right now than what Wolverine gives him credit for. Like, he's not maybe as bad off.
No, he has those moments, but he's got those moments of clarity.
But maybe he's being overly medicated, which he implied early in the movie that he was. Yeah. Because I think Logan's so scared of the repercussions if he's not, right? So So there's that complexity there. That's kind of what makes Professor X kind of like butt heads with him a little bit too. Right. He's like, dude, just give me a break.
Right.
You know?
Well, and then you introduce X-23 into the whole mix, and Professor X has been mentally communicating with her, sensing her, and then so he's all on board with helping her, and Logan's just like, no, I don't want to help anybody anymore. Anybody I try to help, bad things happen. I don't want it anymore.
And she has a cool path that she goes on too. She's mute for 3/4 of the movie.
Yeah.
And the young girl does an excellent job with this. But she's also she's only really knows violence.
Yeah.
She's a scary little girl.
Yeah.
But she's kind of figuring out how to turn it down. She's kind of seeing how to live amongst people and in a friendly environment. So it's kind of cool to watch her go in that process too.
Yeah. Well, and again, you have this kind of 3-generational dynamic going on between X-23, Wolverine, and Professor X. And it's like they're all teaching each other something. It's like being, this cross pollination, if you will, of knowledge, from 3 people at 3 different stages of their life, even though Logan is
maybe the oldest of
them all, which is funny, but it's how it goes. But it makes for interesting characters, which I think is something that not that the X-Men movies haven't had interesting characters before, but I think this is something completely different monster, completely different.
Not like this. This is because there wasn't some big bad that they were trying to serve and some world-ending story that they're trying to serve. This story was just serving those 3.
Yeah.
And so much so much the first half of the movie was just their reactions with each other. Like, I can't even tell you that Hugh Jackman has tons and tons of lines at the beginning of this, throughout this movie. It's all just like, it's the action and it's just the interaction, which was cool.
Yeah, no, I agree completely.
Then maybe the other side of the character things is the director James Mangold said that when they were making this, their focus was big on character, short on story.
Sure.
And I totally know what he's saying there and what he's implying. And I think he delivered on that. But the short on story part, there are some things that are going to leave people kind of questioning or maybe a little slightly frustrated with that I think do affect the characters. Like, we don't really know why there's no more X-Men. We get hints that maybe Xavier was involved somehow through maybe these seizures that we see throughout the movie. That's possible.
Yeah.
And I think, that what happened there could add a lot of depth to that character that we don't get.
Right.
We just assume.
Yeah.
And they do so much dancing around assuming it almost would have been easier just to tell you.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like you said, it's a layer to the character that at this point you don't know for what it really is. So it's really on Patrick Stewart, Wolverine, to kind of carry that and bring that, make you understand their pain without knowing what's caused the pain.
Right.
So
it's hard.
Yeah, it can be really hard. But they do it. They do it well. They do. So as you mentioned earlier, Wolverine is kind of being poisoned from the inside. They never really tell you what it is that's poisoning.
They tell you what he tells you kind of what he thinks it is.
Right.
That it's the adamantium.
Yeah.
But you don't really know.
Yeah, you really don't. And, you don't really know the mental issues that are going on with Professor X. They don't officially say. They kind of give you this, again, a list of possibilities, and the audience is just kind of expected to glean from it. Yeah, glean what they want, put whatever label they want on it, and move forward.
Yeah, I mean, they basically wanted to construct their universe.
Yeah.
They're going to say, here's the parameters for this movie. We're going to fit within these, and then just buy in and just go with us.
Right.
Which we do.
Yeah, we do. And that's the thing, even though it is a negative in certain respects, does it hurt the overall movie? No, not for me. So I mentioned it before. I think one of the things that this movie really nailed was tone.
Yeah.
The trailer sold us what the tone was going to be. We hoped that that's what they would actually be in their actual film, and it totally was. It's super violent, super dark, and very deep.
Yeah, and we had questioned early on, at least I did, the R rating. Did this need to be done? You've had Wolverine be a character for 16 years. Why change something now? But I'm so glad they did.
Yeah.
I mean, for the story that they were telling here, it had to be R rated. Because the violence had to be there.
Yeah.
I don't know if all the swearing had to be there.
Yeah, it felt a little gratuitous at times. It was almost like a ha ha ha, Professor X is saying the F word.
Remember, we're R-rated. We can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't get us wrong. We have absolutely no issues with profanity whatsoever. But there's still a time, there's still a place.
Right.
It's not a Quentin Tarantino movie, It's
not.
So, and I felt like in a way they were kind of trying to be like that. But the violence, I think, was spot on, as you were saying, that the anger, the rage that this character is feeling,
all of them
warranted. Really kind of seeing those claws take some heads off.
Yeah, and with X-23, she was great. Her action scenes were great.
Yeah.
And I think, with her being, like, so short and dainty, it's like, this is what X-Men movies were missing, a 9-year-old.
Right. Who knew?
Yeah, that's all you needed this whole time.
They should have just gone to the local elementary school and did some casting.
She just, we've seen claws scraping by people for 16 years, but now to see it, like, with a little bit more, like, agility and gymnastics to it, just kind of put a different spin on it, was really cool. But, the cool thing about the violence, other than it just, it's cool. It's this, with this kind of movie, you're still trying to appeal to the big audience.
Sure.
So, like, when you have those, story, right before you lose some of those, like, maybe younger audience members, I don't know, but before you lose somebody, just they crank it back up, get you back interested, and then get back to the story, which I think they did. I think they balanced that really well.
Yeah, the pacing was really good with that. The balance of action and tone and story. I think that again, something they nailed really well in this movie.
All right, Rob, let's talk about endings for a little bit. Let's start with Professor X.
Yeah.
Spoiler warning.
We're not kidding.
Yeah. So, I think he dies. I know he dies, but I think a lot of people should probably expect that. I mean, they basically in the trailer showed the scene of Wolverine burying him. They showed the scene of, like, Wolverine holding the shovel. It was just him and X-23, and a lot of people assumed that, all right, well, where's Professor X? He's probably the reason why they're holding a shovel. So,
right.
All right, so he has his death scene. What'd you think of it?
I mean, I thought it was interesting because it was, obviously the introduction of X-24, and, so, this Logan ripoff, clone, whatever, tricks him, I guess, and ends up killing him in his own bed.
Right.
And I feel like it was sudden, absolutely, and it definitely took me off guard the way that it happened. But, I mean, it worked, in as far as setting off Logan on this rage, it was completely
so he's got this little minute dialogue going into regrets for this story that you haven't told us. Like we said before, like, they're so foggy about why he should have regrets. Well, then his final speech is his apology for his regrets, but we don't know what you're apologizing for, so it doesn't hit me the same way.
Right. Yeah, like the line of, it's more than I deserve, talking about, he's had such a great evening, and then, but it's more than he deserves, and it's like, well, why? But again, they do hint to his possible involvement in the death of the X-Men, so that's probably what it is. I mean, but again,
but we're not emotionally invested in that event.
Yeah, so. Exactly, and no, it's true. It's a huge gamble to take. But, again, another character that we've been invested in for 17 years, they expect you're already kind of there. Speaking of abrupt endings,
Logan
himself.
Logan dies too.
Yeah. And I feel like that was my biggest issue with that death as well, was the abruptness of it. You got this epic kind of battle going on.
Sure.
Him, X-24. He, was thrown against a...
Well, he started dying well up to that.
It's true. Like, and it all depends on how you want to look at it. Like, you really could make the case he's been dying the whole movie. Like,
but they were kind of hinting at one more big blow, and that could be it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, it happened, obviously. But... he had that kind of moment of clarity with X-23, and then dawn, and then burial scene, and then
line
like that. Yeah, and then it's over, and you're just like, oh, okay.
Well, and it wasn't like, I'm not completely sold in the X-24 character, but what I do like is I like this metaphor of Logan fighting himself.
Sure.
the personification of him fighting himself, because that's what he's been internally doing. Now he's externally doing it.
Yeah.
And Logan wins, but loses because Logan kills himself.
Right, which is, he killed himself. Yeah. Anyway, there's a lot of layers to that, which, it's a little on the nose, sure, but it's effective and it works.
Yeah. But then, I didn't really it is abrupt, but, this is Logan's story. So when Logan's dead, the story's over. Like, I didn't feel like they needed to do too much stuff with X-23 because that's her, leave it open. That's more for the next person that takes the character over, if they ever do, to work with.
Right. No, and it's a good point. It's an issue that Fox is going to have to deal with, because at this point I can't see how they could get her in any other movie because of where this movie possibly takes place in whatever timeline.
And how this movie was told.
Yeah, and how this movie is told. Yeah, you're going to take a character, X-23, from an R-rated comic book movie and then somehow figure out a very comic booky, cheesy way to get her into a PG-13 comic book movie.
Right.
And I don't think that would work. The only other way that it would work, and again, timelines don't make any sense, she would end up in Deadpool.
Yeah.
But
I don't even know in Deadpool's, is Deadpool alive? I mean, we don't know what's happened here, but it's still, she could end up in Deadpool. There, some unannounced Fox project. I just cannot see Fox continuing to make X-Men movies, especially as they're supposedly super expanding. There's possibility of X-Force, Deadpool 2, this New Mutants movie, this X-Men Supernova. Expanding all these movies and not having a Wolverine type character in there at all, and not in any one of those franchises. I don't see Fox doing that.
Because the other option is recasting Hugh Jackman, and they've done it. They did it with all the rest of the X-Men for these new movies. However, I feel like of any of those characters, Hugh Jackman would be the one that most people probably wouldn't buy into being recasted.
Yeah.
And I think
you'd have to do it super comic accurate. You'd have to get a real short actor.
Right.
And you'd have to probably put him in the costume. The two things that fans always want, the thing that fans always complain about with Wolverine is they never got to see him in his costume, and he's so tall.
Yeah.
So there's no way you can get fans, I think, to somewhat even give the guy a chance, because he's got big shoes to fill.
Yeah, absolutely. And in all honesty, I don't know what Fox would do, but I don't see it working. I just don't. I don't see any universe where that.
So they'll do it.
Right. Exactly.
All right, Rob. So just closing it up, rating this movie. I want people to go see it. A lot of people already have.
Yeah.
But this movie does such a good job at what so many superhero movies don't. This movie does a good job what a lot of movies don't. And it does a good job of investing in its characters. There are parts, we're about an hour, 25 minutes into the movie, and I'm just like, man, I hope it's not going to end soon, because I'm really enjoying this trip.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree completely. I think everybody should go see it. I think the one thing as a comic book movie, because, it is.
Sure.
What it does that a lot of comic book movies don't is does something different.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the thing. Comic book movies now are really, a lot of them are just kind of rehashed. Marvel's done a really good job. DC is
trying to be different,
but kind of flailing. So, seeing these other studios that have been in the game longer, really, as far as the film aspect of it, doing something this, I'm not going to use the word experimental because that's not true, but just taking that risk that a lot of other, people aren't taking is interesting, and I think people should definitely give it their time.
All right, guys, you've heard enough of what me and Rob think about this movie. Now we want to hear what you think of the Logan movie. Write down in the comments below.
Also, hit that like and subscribe button to catch all of our upcoming videos.
Thanks for watching. This is Car Ray Rob. I'm Ray.
I'm Rob. And Ray, I'm a god.
You're God?
I'm a god. I'm not the god. I don't think.